So what percentage of people think a woman is to blame if she is raped while drunk? It's actually 28%.
You're watching The Right Stuff with David Van Day, Larry Turner and Dave Gorman. His new series, Genius. It's on BBC Two at 10 tonight. Don't miss it. It's really rather good. Still to come on this show, though, do twins share some kind of telepathic connection? Or do they just think they do? 0207 173 5555. That's the number for your thoughts. But first, at what point is a woman too drunk to consent to sex? If you were unconscious, you would be incapable of consenting to sex, that is for sure. 2 years ago, the law accepted that you girls could be open-eyed, awake, but still too intoxicated to consent, to give your consent. It's up to a jury to decide just how drunk and incapacitated that point is. Now, yesterday, a chef from Kent was cleared of raping a lawyer who claimed she was too drunk to remember actually having sex, let alone whether she consented or not. She consumed some 5 bottles of wine before they started kissing. He said she walked upstairs unaided, performed a sex act on him, and even helped him undress her. He thought her actions indicated her consent. She appeared to enjoy herself. And yet when she woke with him lying next to her the next morning, she cried rape. The predominantly female jury, though, disagreed with that claim that she was too drunk to consent, and he was cleared. So, should drunkenness ever be an excuse for shameful behaviour? Don't we all, as adults, have to take responsibility for our actions, including what happens when we consume something which affects our minds? I have had blackouts when I'm on the lash. It is not something I am proud of. On one particular occasion, I went from bar to bar, chatted to different people, friends and strangers. I walked 6 miles home despite having the cab fare in my pocket, and I have no memory at all of that evening. Now, if I'd attacked someone and I'd been nicked for it, I would have to accept my guilt, even though I couldn't remember doing anything wrong. And don't forget, by the way, the man in the rape case, you know, he was innocent. At the same time, though, if someone had beaten me up as I staggered home, I would also accept that it was partly my fault for not being compass enough to avoid trouble. So should sex be a different case? Should someone who is conscious at the time of sex be allowed to claim later they were too drunk to know what they were doing? Some might say, of course, the safest course of action is never to have sex with someone who is drunk. But how drunk is drunk? 5 bottles? Not according to the jury yesterday. What about a glass of baby sham, Larry? I mean, it's a question of degree, but I have no idea where the degree is.
And I think nobody else, because I think it varies, it depends on, is the person used to drinking a great deal? It depends whether you've eaten a meal. It depends how long over the time you've been drunk. You are. All of those issues. I thank goodness that I don't drink anymore because, it's terrifying, the things that you get yourself into.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear this thing about, women cry rape. I think interesting it's a female jury cleared this guy because women can be very hard on other women. And when I think back to when I was younger...
But equally, you could just as easily turn around and say men can be very hard.
No, I think women can be very hard. And I think I'm trying to think back to when I was younger and perhaps a bit more stupid about this, getting myself into situations. And I've been in situations where I've never been raped, but I've been in situations where I've been under huge pressure to have sex with somebody. Perhaps I've been on a few dates with them, and he got to the point where he's kind of tired of waiting. And I think actually in those situations, some of those guys haven't behaved very well. And I haven't said it was rape, and I blamed myself. And I think an awful lot of we know that the number of women who report rape is very small compared to the number of women who actually suffer it. So I think on the whole, a lot of women do blame themselves for getting into those situations and do say, I was stupid, I got drunk.
Is that fair?
I think we have to take responsibility for our own actions. I think women are taught to take responsibility for men's desire for them. And women are taught to say, well, it was my fault I was wearing a short skirt. It was my fault I'd had a drink. It was my fault I led him. It was my fault I let him walk upstairs. It was my fault I offered a coffee. We do that automatically. To have the courage to actually go into court and allege it when your case is so incredibly weak makes you quite brave, either very mad or quite brave. In this case, of course, we have to remember he was found not guilty, but that's because the jury accepted his version of events. Her version was that she was out cold, she was asleep, and she woke up. Now, in a situation where a woman is so drunk she's asleep, to me it seems very clear you do not have sex with a woman who is actually unconscious. everything else, as a woman, you put yourself in danger, and as a man, you put yourself in danger of being.
I think he claimed she wasn't unconscious.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
he
right.
claimed.
And
there was a flatmate there who was with them up until the hour before, and she went home. Yeah.
I mean, for me, this is crystal clear. This case technically.
Well, I said the case has been decided. The chef is clear. There's a separate issue, of course, that the chef's face is all over the papers. But that's the series. Just on this notion of, you know, the law accepts that at a certain point a woman can be deemed too drunk to consent. Unconscious is clearly at one end of the scale. At what point do we enter the grey area?
I mean, how many women have you met who are drunk sometimes and amorous? I mean, it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Of course it does. And to me...
But what is drunk? You know, is a glass of wine drunk? Is it a bottle of wine? Is it 5 bottles of wine?
Yeah, for different people, different, you know, amounts, of course. And what would happen if he didn't know the person and he only met that night and had gone back so he didn't know what her tolerance level was? You understand? So he didn't know an in-depth of her personality.
How do you know, for example, if in my little blackout walk, people are talking to me, they don't know when they're talking to me that I'm not going to remember a thing about it. So at the time, at the moment of sex, that you could appear fully compass, having a dialogue, appear to be explaining yourself properly, but the next day have no recollection of it whatsoever.
In the same way as when you were really drunk and you were doing that walk home, had you dropped your keys outside your house and had somebody, a stranger, helped you, opened your front door, got you inside, shut the door behind you, you would be very grateful for the kindness of that person, wouldn't you? And one would hope, or all of us who have children...
At the time, but the next day might not remember it.
Well, that's not the point. The fact is somebody was kind to you. And I think in this situation, that if the woman is really drunk, the guy says, you know what, actually, the kind, the chivalrous, the good thing to do here, and there is the decent thing to do, is not to sleep with this woman. He's also drunk,
if he's as drunk as her,
yes,
you're both
I
in the
agree,
same position.
but I still would hope for the kindness and chivalry.
Yes, it's a nice thought.
I think it also does depend on whether you're in an existing relationship with this person or not. And the idea of sleeping with someone for the first time, not being preceded by some kind of conversation, and actually for your own dignity, some real concrete evidence that this person does want this to happen, that would be a big thing for me. I think, you know, if you're in a relationship with someone and you're both high as a kite, then there's obviously some implied consent because it's something that happened the night before or whatever.
A lot of people clearly, as you go, the streets and pavements of Britain will testify to it. There are plenty of people get out of their brains and then go on.
And when you see those pictures of those girls passed out on park benches, my heart says, why doesn't somebody wrap a coat around that girl, put her in a taxi and take her home?
My brain says, pull yourself together, stop making such a fool of yourself.
She's somebody's daughter. She's somebody's daughter.
But we're meant to record it these days, or what?
OK, let's throw it open to you. At what point is someone too drunk to consent to sex? Amy?
OK, let's start with Jane first on line 2, then.